Welcome, book lovers, to another edition of what we call Bookmarked, where we read books and we discuss them each and every month. Now, who is we? Well, I am Phil Svitek, joined alongside Marisa Serafini. Welcome, Marisa.
Hello,
And
Phil.
and today we are covering Brida by Paulo Coelho. Most of you probably know him from The Alchemist, but he's also done The Pilgrimage. And this is kind of the third book in a loose trilogy. Like, they're not at all the same in terms of their plot. They're way different protagonists, whatever. But spiritually, they're kind of coming of age stories, even though the protagonists are more towards like adulthood rather than, going into adolescence. But we'll talk about all of that as it pertains to, as you can imagine, Brida, the protagonist of this one. Before we dive in, just a few words. We will get into spoilers, number one. So, if you haven't read the book, be cautioned of that first and foremost. And towards the end, we'll also talk about other stuff we're reading and things of that nature. So lots to look forward to. And we'll, of course, preview other books that we've got coming down the pike. So without further ado, Marisa, let me kick it to you for your overall reaction of this book.
Yeah, when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, Paulo Coelho. I mean, I recognize that from The Alchemist. I admit I'm one of the few million people in the world who has read that book. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I was like excited to read this one. And I'm always down for a female protagonist who's on a search for bigger answers in her world, and like the self-empowering, self-growing, just someone who wants to build upon and make themselves better. I'm always for that. So like I enjoyed the journey that Britta took. The ways that she went about it, interesting. Probably not the way that I would, but that was her path. Seeing her spiritual journey as someone who was raised very, very Catholic, like I understand like being conditioned to only think one secular way, and then I liked how this book like talked about being open to other beliefs and ways to approach things. So that I appreciated.
Yeah, and so for me, this kind of scratched the itch of completing this trilogy because I read The Pilgrimage first, I read The Alchemist second, and then I read this, and I believe that is the order of them. But you've only read The Alchemist, and this was years ago, right?
Yes, probably a good solid 10 years by now, but um, I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can dive into more of the compare and contrast, certainly just from memory and things of that nature. But just to take a quick step back, who is who is the author, right? Well, he's a Brazilian novelist, and he was born in 1947 in Rio de Janeiro, and he became a global bestseller with The Alchemist in 1988. He was raised Catholic, and his parents actually had him committed to a mental institution where he escaped 3 times and released at 20. He enrolled in law school per his parents' wishes, but then dropped out and kind of lived as a hippie, as you might imagine, traveling across South America, North America, Mexico, Europe, and experimented with drugs. I don't think that's, if you've read any of his works, I think you'll probably understand that side of it. Now, as far as his work, right, he started writing and a lot of it deals with spirituality and things like that. And, they're kind of memoir-esque books. So even Brida, though a work of fiction, embodies a lot of like him in it for sure, right? And whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, I would say like The Alchemist by far is the biggest one that people know. And for me, if I had to rank them, it goes The Alchemist, then The Pilgrimage, which The Pilgrimage is, I would say, the most autobiographical because it's about his time in Europe and kind of going on the trail of this religious, from church to church, if you will, and stuff like that. And then Brida is, a spiritual successor to both of those. And, he's had many successes worldwide. In fact, him and Kobe Bryant want to co-write a children's book, but after Kobe Bryant's untimely death, Pio decided, no, I'm not going to do that out of respect for Kobe Bryant and stuff like that. So, yeah, a lot's there for sure. And you can see the reoccurring stuff of spiritual seeking, destiny, personal legend, parables, and mixed with mysticism and magical realism. And we certainly get that in here. And I guess that's a nice entry point because you've studied Catholicism, for lack of a better term, far more than I have. So you can kind of compare and contrast because this was a version of it in the book that I'd not really known about. So curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's journey is a bit different. That's safe to say. But the thing with Catholicism, it is very, very structured. Um, and it's the same stories literally told and taught over and over and over again. So, like, by the time it's been taught, everyone has the general sense of, like, X, Y, Z happened. Like, we know what happened. We knew who was there, like in the order of which like events took place. And you should do this, this, and this. It's like, it's very like listed or itemized for you. It's just like, if you do this, you'll receive this. If you go to church, you'll have your sins forgiven every week. Or it's like, if you go to reconciliation, you have a better chance of getting into heaven because your sins are forgiven and stuff like that. It's like, if you do this, you have a better chance of getting into heaven, basically. So it's like, it teaches you ways of how to succeed spiritually. Like, once you die, your soul will go to a better place other than here. But also, what society has taught us these days, and I think with the help of social media and just like the help of technology, is that everyone is starting to see outside the box of Catholicism. And once you actually look at it individually in like certain parts, you see a lot of the flaws of Catholicism. So many flaws that actually teaches people that are like, oh, Catholics aren't really good people. They aren't. And there's a joke that like the only good thing about Catholicism is teaching you how to hate yourself, because you can learn how to make yourself better for the future, but it doesn't teach you how to be a good person now towards other people, which is, it's so weird. So there's a lot of contradictions and flaws and problems within the Catholicism. And that's what I see a lot of people are straying away from that. I personally am way, way more lax Catholicism, mostly because I didn't have a choice when I grew up. And sorry, this has become a therapy session, but it's more so like I had to do it because my parents did it. I did it out of obedience. I did it because it was easier to go to a 45-minute mass than to fight with my parents all day about not going, So it's more like out of just being obedient child that I was like, all right, if I go to church, I'll make my parents happy. But while I was doing that, like I had to learn everything. And unfortunately, it was so ingrained into me that I haven't practiced it for years, but I still know the whole mentality and the whole structure of it because it is so strict in how you have to do X, Y, and Z. So to see Brida and her journey, like finally opening herself up to other teachings, other ways of how people approach something, I enjoyed that because it's like Catholicism, unfortunately, is very, very strict. And like once you're Catholic, you can't go back to anything else. You can't convert or whatever. It's like very strict in that way. So like a lot of people don't think like, yeah, I'm stuck forever. But Britta's mentality is like, oh, she actually has the freedom to learn something else other than what she was taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, so she literally goes to a woman named Wicca. And we'll talk about the plot, but like at a certain point, one of her teachers becomes this witchcraft type woman, and yet that falls in line with that sense of Catholicism, right? So it's not saying, in terms of the book, it's not arguing against Catholicism. It's just expanding the worldview of what Catholicism is, which I found to be very interesting. And it's one of those sort of aspects that I don't know, certainly as is with the author's works, but I think in life in general, we're searching for, okay, what is the meaning of life? This book deals with, what is love? Love ends up kind of being the central theme of what makes a valuable life, if you will. And how do you define that in terms of true love? We'll certainly expand upon that. But ultimately, to me, I think it's very interesting because as I study various things, I know you're not necessarily supposed to, but I like to pick and choose. Okay, well, if I like something out of, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Catholicism, whatever, if it makes sense to me, then I try to pick that out and leave the rest behind, sort of a thing. Which again, I know many people would frown upon. And yet at the same time, there's this undercurrent to me, regardless of the religion, that if your religion is quote unquote the true religion, then it doesn't matter how much it's questioned or whatever else, because I should find my way back to it because it's the truth, right? But I just also, and I know I'm throwing A out a lot, and B, some of it might be contradictory, but I also think in the grander scheme of things, I've been accused of, let's say, an atheist or agnostic or whatever else. I don't even know. I don't even know what label I would give to myself. But I also think it's not that I'm against the idea of God. I just think the idea of trying to define what God is a fool's errand. And the minute you try to do so, you're not gonna succeed, right? If God is this all-knowing entity, then to do it the words themselves are already very limiting, right? So to do it in any sort of capacity is interesting, and that's why a lot of the faith that I try to follow is more of an imbued sense of action, and this emotional practice, and whether it's meditation or yoga, and even sports, people talk about going with the flow, right? The best athletes, their brains essentially turn off and whatever else. Anyway, I digress, but hopefully you understood half of that. Feel free to respond to it, or we can move on to Brida and her journey.
Yeah, I think I want to say I see where you're going, because a lot of things, Catholicism, just spiritualism, it's something that's intangible, and that's, I feel, for people harder to describe because it's more of a feeling rather than hard, evidentiary things in front of you, and that's what a lot of people nowadays, thanks to technology, who question Catholicism, because Catholicism is a very definitive amount of time. It's set at certain dates. It started here, when there has literally been scientific fact and other evidentiary stuff in the world that proves that, hey, there's a whole nother lifetime before Catholicism even starts. So and that's what people question. We're the world is a lot longer and bigger, and then bigger than what Catholicism is. It's very structured, like I said, but it's also very stagnant in a definite amount of time. It doesn't, and that's the problem, because it doesn't grow. It's stuck where it is, and that's it. You can't go forward or backwards. Nothing changes with Catholicism. You could go to a mass. I haven't been to mass in years, but I can still recite every single prayer because it's so repetitive. They teach the same things. It doesn't grow, it doesn't change. And I think that's the problem with today's society, is that we are a growing society. People are thinking outside the box. People have more access to information that takes us past Catholicism. And that's where a lot of people question, like, well, why why can't we think of other ways? There's like, why do we have to believe in Catholicism? Why do we have to believe in anything? So it's like, I think that's where Brida was getting the freedom that she can explore things past, and she was exploring the physical sense, with the help of some physical, tarot cards and stuff. But it's like, it's the spiritualism is harder to explain of growth because you can't physically see evidence.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's sort of deep dive. In a nutshell, the story, as implied by its title, is about a woman named Brida. She's in Ireland. She's searching for something deeper in life, and she stumbles upon a mentor who is taught in the tradition of the sun. His name is Magus, and we kind of jump around from various perspectives. Like, it should primarily be Brida, but we actually get other protagonists, and I would say Magus is the other protagonist, and we open and end on him for the most part, where he sees Brida as his true love, but he knows he can't say anything yet. She has to kind of come to that conclusion, and whatever else, like, he has to just allow her to be and go on her own journey. And for the most part, Brida enjoys learning from Magus, but it isn't complete because there's essentially two traditions, the sun and the moon. And so she seeks out Wicca, who is versed in the moon tradition. It's much more enigmatic, what I alluded to earlier with the witchcraft. And so she's learning from both of them at the same time. And, later on we find out that Magus and Wicca had a romantic relationship, but they never at any point were their soulmates, right? And then the book kind of culminates in this ritual where Brida finds transcendence, let's say, and she recognizes that you can have multiple soulmates, and that while Magus is one of her soulmates, it's just a soulmate that is meant to come and go, whereas her true, forever soulmate is Lorens, her lover. And that's where we kind of end it. And it's a semi-sad story. I don't know. I know we're talking about the end, but in an odd way, it's a romance story. Even though we've just literally talked 20 minutes about religion, it's a romance book.
It really is. It really is. That I enjoyed because that I understood better, more so. I think it's because there's this whole saying that people come into your life for a reason and a season and something else. I totally butchered
A lifetime.
that. I'm sorry. In a lifetime. And if you look at it through that lens, you see that Magus is probably the person who is there for a lifetime, and Lorens is there for a season or something. It's there's
Switch it.
Switch
it. Lorens is there for a lifetime.
Well, I think it started off as Lorens was just her love, but Magus was the deeper soulmate. So that's how I saw it. I was even at the end of this book, I still question if she should have ended up with Lorens. Because it was so obvious that she should have been with Magus, only because they are two soulmates and all the things aligned for them to have a more compatible relationship. So maybe deep down I just wanted those two to end up together. But again, that was Brida's decision, and I think that's what Magus allowed her. It was hey, I know this is supposed to happen, but I can't force this upon her. She has to choose herself. So I she had way more freedom than most people do.
I'm kind of curious because we get a lot more internal dialogue of Magus than we do Lorens, which I think maybe partly do with that, and correct me if I'm wrong if you think that's incorrect. But my problem with Magus, I think initially when he says, I need to let her go through her own journey, that's all well and good. I understood that. But at a certain point, what's that Shakespeare quote? Faint heart, fair maiden never did win, or whatever the hell it is, right? Basically, you have to be bold in order to win your love. And with all due respect to Magus, there was a time of like, you got to put up or shut up. Like, we're getting close to the end of the book. Not that he would know that, but, you know, it's like, hey, you got to start to go after her. And like, she, you know, they had their walks in the woods, and she really enjoyed it and whatever else. But he kept like shying away. And she's like, no, she's leaning into you, bro. Go
Make
with
your
it.
move.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that was your moment. This is the moment where you could have like brought things to a higher level. You know, like I totally Magus is just like the timid. He's like really I mean, it is like romance tropes, you know. It's like it's the best friend that you know they should end up together, but is too timid to actually make a move because he loves her too much. Like, girl,
Yeah.
or like dude, like just like if you really want her, you actually have to actively go after her. But you weren't. You were too passive. Where
Yeah.
Lorens came in and took your girl.
Yeah. So, you know, Shakespeare quote is true. Faint heart,
Yeah,
fair maiden never did win.
yeah, and it's like
Uh,
good guys finish last.
let's not,
It's true.
again, it's not even like, it's tough because we don't truly know too much about Lorens, right? We only really spent time with him towards the end of the book. Everything beyond that is just through Britta's eyes of like, that's my person, right? Like, she never even calls him like her love, kind of like a lover, not really a boyfriend. Like, we never get the sense that there's a deeper bond there until the very end. So
Which is
that's what's
weird. So
so,
that's what I'm saying. I was like, I still question whether she should have ended up with Lore. Like she should have. Personally, I think she should have ended up with Magus because I think the book goes farther into detail of how just perfect Magus and Britta are for each other. And what I only read of Lawrence, like you said, there was literally hardly any book time with him. That their short interaction, I didn't see it as love. Honestly, I saw it as lust. I was like, girl, you're
mhm,
just you just want him now. Um, but again, so that's why I see Lawrence as a season. You are temporary, whereas
mhm.
Magus is lifetime. And that's the frustrating thing. I'm like, girl. And then she went to Lawrence. Like, there's not enough. They didn't establish that relationship strong enough, deep enough, as much as they did as Magus. So I was actually very upset that she went with Lawrence.
Mhm. Well, part of the revelation for Britta was her mom's impactful story where her mom essentially said like, hey, I loved your dad, but I also had this like one-time fling with this one guy, and he was my true love, but only for that day. Your dad was also my true love, and you can have multiple true loves. So I guess just on a fundamental level, do you agree you can have multiple true loves?
I believe you can get to that point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for the short amount of time she was with Lawrence, it comes across as lust, not love. I feel like love is earned. You have to really learn every aspect of a person's life, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all those things, which we spent the proper time amount with Magus to see how just they aligned perfectly together to be soulmates. For no time with Lawrence, be like, why is she with this dude? They only met like once or twice. That's it.
Yeah.
Why?
Um, I mean, in some sense, my sort of kumbaya aspect to it was number one, Magus, he was older than her and he was like her mentor. So I felt it would, to me, there was like just this inherent aspect that it felt wrong for Magus to end up with Britta because I felt like she needed someone more of her age. Not that you can't have an age difference. And I don't know. I think what I was hopeful for was that Magus and Wicca, by the vehicle of Britta, would have sort of changed and found their way back to each other. But it's kind of a very depressing story in that way. And again, for a story that's called Britta, it does open for the most part and end with Magus, and he has no love, and Wicca's like, pretty much like, you poor bastard. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, as much as I love a female empowerment story, but like Magus became basically, like he was the second protagonist. I was like, that's what I'm saying. We spent so much time with Magus. Why
Mhm.
did she end up with Lorens? And that's just frustrating. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I
because
think
even
it's just she should. Oh yeah,
Well, because I was going to say,
go ahead.
even, and when we're kind of equating just based on page count alone, right? We spend time with Brida, then Magus, and Wicca, for the most part, is this mysterious person that Brida spends a lot of time with, but the dog comes in when it's time to leave. She has plenty of other clients that becomes known, and she gives Brida like, "Hey, do your tarot cards, do this," and it's a very cold relationship, right? So as far as any actual like warmth and love, we get it through Magus, but uh, I guess one question about all of this, since we're talking about the idea of soulmate, for the most part, I'm curious how you interpreted or if you agreed with their definition that you just see it in their eyes essentially is what it is, right? Like, do you agree with that or not?
Uh, it's hard to agree with because that was their quote unquote personal opinions. Magus
Mm-hmm.
knew that Brita was his soulmate. Um, but that was only because Magus told us, the reader, that Brita was his soulmate. But as we spent more time, I started to actually believe it myself. Not because Magus said it, but because I actually truly believed it. Um, and I think that's the thing with a lot of people who question: is it true love? Is it soulmates? And I think that's the difference of like how you approach relationships, how you approach, how you think those philosophies are. It's like I feel true love is like the actions and words behind actually getting to know someone, doing something for them doing them and reciprocating and actually like building a life together, building something together, and therefore you find this like mutual love and respect for each other. Like that could be true love. You can do that with over time with a lot of different people. Hence, you can have multiple true loves, but soulmates is something more different. I feel deeper, more spiritual. Again, you can't touch it. You can only maybe have it once, maybe have it twice. It's really depends on how much time you put into something that can work its way up to love, and how much less time you can have something that's only deemed as a soulmate. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's so many. It's so ambiguous of how people approach it and see that.
Yeah, and the idea of soulmate in this book kind of completes, right? I mean, you can see it in other works of film, paintings, and certainly novels. This idea of like you complete me, right? So it's kind of like that aspect, and that's why the pluralism might be in conflict with that because then it's like, okay, if you're the third man out, you're just
Right.
incomplete for the rest of your life, you know? But one interesting aspect to the whole book, so, you've mentioned the repetitive and consistent nature of Catholicism. Brita, she has visions of, I believe it's 13th century France, of a woman and stuff like that. So I was kind of curious if we're viewing it through that lens, what did you think of the flashback scenes?
I mean, it's interesting because she has to kind of see the world through someone else's eyes a little bit. And so I kind of saw it at that moment, like she's literally walking someone else's shoes. And sometimes when you do that, you actually understand even more. So I liked it. I think that helped add to her spiritual journey because again, now she's getting out of sight of herself. She's literally becoming like she's thinking of someone else's life. And that's like expanding her world. So I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So, a common criticism of this book in particular is that it's a little too self-indulgent. Britta, it's like, what is she searching for, and this and that. So, I was kind of curious. Now that you mention it, like she got outside of herself. Like, again, for me, if I'm being honest, this was the weakest of the trilogy. I mean, The Alchemist is just on a whole different level. The Pilgrimage, a very fine, a well above average book. Britta, I'm not going to knock it, but like on paper, in terms of us talking about the plot, was way more exciting than, for me, unfortunately, was written on the page. So I don't know if you had that same experience or whatnot, but just kind of curious if, yeah, just how you reacted to the writing style and if you can see the criticism that Brida was just this too self-indulged person.
Well, I think that's hard to say if it's self-indulgent because learning more about yourself and about life, again, that's how people train us to think that we're selfish. When we're trying to better ourselves, that's selfish. That's we got to change that mentality, and that's a very Catholic thing to do. That's like what my parents tell me. It's like if you do something for yourself, you're selfish. If you do something for someone else, you're selfless. Um, but that's the part of journey and growth. She was doing something, and I think it's like her. Also, she's young age. She was what in her 20s, early
Yeah,
20s.
early
So
20s,
she's
like
at this
barely
point
21.
where she actually can afford to yeah, she's at this point where she's starting to question her life. And hey, we do a lot of crazy things in our 20s. That's what 20s are for, the years of exploring. um, and I think the problem with this book is that it is in such a small, short, fast amount of time. But like, it's really a definitive kind of book where she did all this stuff in a very, very short amount of time. Where you question, like, are you basing your entire life off of like a quick one weekend, one or two experiences, compared to something else that could be like actual lifetime building? Um, yeah, it's like, do you really want to change your ways just off of one or two experiences of getting high and and being with people because you enjoyed yourself because you hit enlightenment for like 2 hours?
Yeah, I mean that's it's sort of the pitfalls of spirituality. Like I think you can reach Satori or have a moment of like an epiphany, right? Like that's what epiphany is. It's just a quick moment, and it can be life altering in many ways. What's that quote? I believe it's from the Beatles. Like there's some decades uh, that there's some years that feel like decades, and then there's some decades that feel like a year. Essentially, how you measure time can be vastly different, and it comes down to how you're spending your time. If it's all boring and routine, then it feels monotonous. But if like just stuff all of a sudden happens all in one fell swoop, like whoa, there's a lot happening, right? And it changes you, it alters you. And there's also this notion, I think, not that this book gets into it, but just raising it as a tangential aspect to it, where let's say someone reads a book or has a weekend retreat or whatever it is, this experience that's such a high, right? And I can't quantify it, but people say like there's an 80% shift, and then all of a sudden they're chasing that same exact experience and whatever else. But it's like you've already like that shift, that major shift can only happen once, and the rest of it you're just fighting for like little crumbs. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know, it is fascinating, but yeah, I get what you're saying. But I imagine in the totality of her life, if she were to look back on this, like this would be a huge part, and she would a defining moment of like what changed the trajectory of her life. You know what I mean? So
Right. I was like, there are life-changing moments too, and I think the thing is, she's so young. She's experiencing something new at such a young age, and we haven't seen what she's done past the decision. She can make this decision, but like, where is she in 10 years? Did she go back to Magus? Well, we don't know. So this is, like I said, it's very definitive. It's just in the now moment, not overall lifetime. Like, yeah,
well,
we can want to do one career right now, but it's going to change in like five years from now. It's like, are you going to still be the same person? Is this a life changing event that will literally carry you through the rest of your life, or is this just for the next few years?
yeah, I mean that's an interesting thought, and I would um, kind of I look at it through this lens, and maybe this is me ascribing something to the book that it doesn't have, but whatever spiritual practice you talk about, they highlight be in the moment, right? Be present. That's all you can ever be. So I think it can kind of point to that, and B, if anything, it's giving her the tools for a greater life, right? And I think with anything that one hopes, like it's like you gain these tools you expand your horizons, you use those things as long as they serve you. And unfortunately, too many people hold on to those things. But, if you're good, you shed things as you no longer need them, right? So here's just even just to give it a specific point. When you're growing up, your ego is actually not a bad thing, right? It teaches you how to kind of survive in the world. It's just when you get later on in life, you no longer need it. Case in point, you start to learn like, hey, as a kid, you might love candy, but your parents, let's say they slap your hand away from the candy and you can't have that. Now you can't reconcile the two of like, wait, I like candy. Why won't they give me candy? So in order to not get hit, your ego's like, hey, I have to protect you, so don't go after the candy and pretend like you don't like candy. And there's this disconnect that grows. So as long as you could later on merge the two and say like, hey, ego, you did good. I needed you for protection, but now I'm giving you a new role in life, right. So anyway, I digress, but just some food for thought.
Yeah, and I think there's also a difference between self-preservation and
Mm.
protection compared to obedience. That's what I'm saying. Like Catholicism is a lot of obedience. Um, and like once you actually get away from the source that you had to be obedient from, aka me getting away from my parents because they're the ones who, you know, I don't want to say inflicted, but they're the ones who made me do all the things that I do. And you find yourself, your individualism, like now you're at the point where like this is best for me, best for
Mm.
my self-preservation compared to
Indeed.
ego.
Indeed. Well, obviously there's many paths we can go with the book, but I wanted to just give some quotes. But before I do, anything else that you feel we should touch upon as far as the book is concerned?
Um, I think if anyone wants to take away from this, it's like do take the moment to learn other things. Despite what
Mm-hmm.
everybody else has taught you or what you already know, I was like, you should take the moment to learn. Allow yourself to be open-minded, have other ideas come in, and then you can decide what you want to follow. Not because someone else told you, but because you decided. So, like, I appreciate that Britta had that at such a young time in her life, where I feel like a lot of adults are experiencing it a lot later. Had they had it earlier in their life, they would have been better people for
Mm-hmm.
it. So I appreciate that she had it so earlier in life. This could actually help her. So my advice to people is take the time to learn what you need that makes you a better person.
Yeah, and I think that's a great, excellent point. I'll tack on to it that much like Britta in the book, not all of it's going to be sunshine and roses, right? Like her in particular with Wicca, she was kind of pushing back against certain things or she didn't like certain things, but she stuck with them and understood it, right? There's this idea that I heard very recently. Like, if you love your therapist, maybe you don't have a therapist that you should be working with, meaning that like part of therapy is to have you look at shit that you don't want to look at within yourself, right? And that's what kind of helps you shed those aspects of yourself that no longer serve you. So it isn't always pretty. Um, in a more practical sense, whether creativity or otherwise, at a certain point, motivation has to turn into discipline because I know a lot of people that like, I'm going to write a book and there's like such motivation. Well, to write a book is going to take like, in the best of terms, if you're like Stephen King, at least 3 months. And that's an insane pace, right? He's writing like 2,000, 3,000 words a day. Most of us mortals can't quite match that. So in that sense, like there's this duality to me, and maybe we can talk about that just a little bit before I go into the quotes, because I am curious to hear your thoughts on that duality of pleasure and pain, because I think it is touched upon in the book quite a number of times, that duality and, what's the fine balance.
Right. And I think you can kind of compare that also or make it very analogous to the idea of the difference between hard work and goals compared
Mm-hmm.
to instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you put in the time, effort, discipline, hard work, you can eventually reach your goals, which is satisfying, compared to also getting something immediately that you might have, you know, maybe worked hard just for like a short amount of time, but you got it now, also satisfying. But like it's the difference between like something that's earned and something that you immediately got. And I think that's also where a lot of people chase the high or actually plays the long game.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if I may, for you, Krav Maga, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
I imagine there's a deeper sense that by you going through and the hard work you put in week to week out, the training, the discipline, the sacrifices, when you reach the next phase of, we'll call it your training, that feels a lot better than just eating a Kit Kat bar, which might give you like a, instant gratification of, ooh, I like chocolate. And now I would argue you can have both. But, right? Like, am I incorrect in that thought?
No, that's like I love how you brought that up because I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah, absolutely. It's the hard work. I've personally been in it for years. I am at currently, not to put a time stamp on our show, but I am brown belt moving into black. But it's because I have put 7+ years behind me of training slowly, um, consistently, some weeks inconsistent, but like overall, if you take all those years together, you can see my trajectory of how I got ranked up to get to black compared to other people who only do the short amount of time, do the work for like, yeah, sure, 3 months, you got a rank, great. But I put in years, and once I hit black, now I'll have the bragging rights. And well, it's not really for bragging, but just like the knowledge and the self satisfaction that I put in the work and discipline into getting such achievement. Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
great example.
Well, kudos to you for sure. Um, I see a lot of those videos,
Thank
and
you.
yes, I try to do it my own way, but my God, you've definitely put in the work. Let's just say that. All right. So some
Yes.
quotes, and feel free
Thank you.
to jump in if you have any thoughts on, any of them as like a quick reaction. But I'll just kind of try to do as sort of fast paced as I can. When you find your path, you must not be afraid. You need to have sufficient courage to make mistakes. Disappointment, defeat, and despairs are the tools God uses to show us the way. Agree with it or not? Yeah.
Uh,
Seems.
yes. Catholicism, a lot of it, is shame based. If you do
Mhm.
this, you won't do this. Like if you sin, you'll go to hell. Like don't be a sinner. You're such a sinner. Again, it teaches you how to hate yourself. So, but to allow yourself grace to learn mistakes and go through stuff and maybe learn from it, but not dwell on it with shame, that's how you grow.
Absolutely. Uh, to that effect, accept what life offers you and try to drink from every cup. All wines should be tasted. Some should only be sipped, but with others, drink the whole bottle. And obviously, that's a metaphor, but I also like it literally. So,
Same. You and I are such winos. I love it. Totally, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Try everything. Realize what's good for you, what you want to indulge yourself in, and others be like, yeah, no, not for me. I tried it. Don't want to engage in it. Yeah, sip everything. That's also the thing. Learn everything. Learn as much as you can, and then
yeah.
find what's right for you.
Yes, well, speaking of that, choosing a path meant having to miss out on others. She had a whole life to live, and she was always thinking that in the future she might regret the choices she made now. I'm afraid of committing myself, she thought to herself. She wanted to follow all possible paths, and so ended up following none. Even in that most important area of life, love, she had failed to commit herself. After her first romantic disappointment, she had never again given herself entirely. She feared pain, loss, and separation. These things were inevitable on the path to love. And the only way of avoiding them was by deciding not to take the path at all. In order not to suffer, you had to renounce love. It was like putting out your own eyes not to see the bad things in life. Pretty deep. Any comment on it?
That's also the idea of, yeah. I get it, but
Fair.
it's also the idea of, like, it's the whole what if. What if I did
Mm-hmm.
that? Or what if that I could have had a different life? We've read The Midnight Library. It's all about a woman questioning all the other different lives she could have had. Um, and also that shows the difference between those who are courageous to go after what they want compared to those who are too scared that they don't choose anything and they stay stuck where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you don't do anything, if you don't engage, you won't get hurt.
Yeah.
But that's also not how you grow.
It is not. Okay, next one. Don't bother trying to explain your emotions. Live everything as intensely as you can and keep whatever you felt as a gift from God. The best way to destroy the bridge between the visible and invisible is trying to explain your emotions. Very interesting thought, because I don't know, it rings contradictory to a lot of things we're fed through society, let's say. So I just picked that out. I don't know if I fully agree with it,
Yeah.
but I kind of get what it's going for, so I felt it was worth reading.
I get it. It's also there's just like the whole scientific fact. Let's going into science. Is like the scientific fact of like how memories are actually imprinted is usually because it garnered like warranted an actual emotion, anger, sadness, happiness, whatever. Those are the things that actually stick with us because it's like rooted in emotion compared to something that you just like did on it, like going through the motions of something like driving. You're not going to remember every single day you drove, but you're going to remember this moment you like shot your first basketball or something. It's like because that's more rooted into. So once emotions are actually tied to it, you have a better chance of remembering it. You can remember and choose to focus on the good memories compared to all the bad memories you also remember. So it's more like you're gonna go through a lot of shit, whether good or bad. Focus on the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an excellent point for sure. I'm going to read two in a row because I think they tie together ultimately. But how will I know who my soulmate is? Brida felt that this was one of the most important questions she had ever asked in her life. Secondly, to that, by taking risks, she said to Brida, by risking failure, disappointment, disillusion, but never ceasing in your search for love. As long as you keep looking, you will triumph in the end. So, some words of encouragement, ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay, just a few more. Let me. I'll read through these, and then how about you can comment on all three of them or one of them, whatever. But just to kind of speed things up. People give flowers as presents because flowers contain true meaning of love. Anyone who tries to possess a flower will have to watch its beauty fading. But if you simply look at a flower in the field, you'll keep it forever. That's one quote. Next quote. This is what the forest taught me, that you will never be mine, and that is why I will never lose you. Third quote. Fairy tales have been her first experience of the magical universe, and more than once she had wondered why people ended up distancing themselves from that world, knowing the immense joy that childhood had brought to their lives.
Ooh, wow. All of them are deep. I'll comment just for the sake of time. I'll just comment on the first one. It's like I feel like that's like the whole idea of the flowers. It's like if there's that quote: if you like something, you'll pluck. If you like a flower, you'll pluck it, but it will eventually die. But if you water it daily, then that grows in something. That's more meaningful. So I think it's more like cherish and nurture things rather than the instant gratification.
Yeah. And it's like anything, like the paradoxical aspect is like the more you fight to possess something, the more likely it is to go away. right? Like
Yeah.
just in simple terms, in a romantic relationship, if you try to possess a person, they're eventually going to be like, well, I have no freedom here, so I want out of this relationship. So the thing that someone is fighting for so vehemently is the thing that leads the other person to go.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
the irony in all of it.
Yes, indeed. All right. Before we highlight what next we're going to be talking about, let's talk about books you've been reading for fun. So, Marissa, want to kick us off with your probable list of 800 books?
Yeah, thank you. Because I just bought 17 books just a week ago. Actually, I'm currently in the middle, surprise, surprise, of a different book that I've been reading that's not in my general purview. The book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Um,
Okay.
it's
Kudos.
very interesting because yeah, it teaches you more like just the mentality of wealth, how we work for money, and how we make money work for us. It teaches you just like approaching just life in general. Like if you work it in a more positive way, more things will probably come back to you in like tenfold. But if you work at a very more pessimistic way, the opposite. And it's just it shows you like the different mentalities of how people approach and the reasons and motivations why we make money, why people slave away at 9 to 5 job like I do, um, for money, for income, for stability, compared to people who are courageous and only like work freelance, but that feeds their soul, you know? So it's like those different types of mentalities and perspectives of like why we make money the way that we make money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I
it is a
highly
very,
suggest it.
very fascinating book for sure. Anything else you've got on your docket?
Actually, currently, no, because
Okay.
there are too many books that I just bought to list. So
Fair,
it'll
fair.
probably be one of those.
Okay. Well, all good. So I am reading at the moment Open Socrates, The Case for a Philosophical Life by Agnes Callard. And, as the title implies, it's very much about Socrates and the Socratic method. And as the subtitle implies, the case for a philosophical life, there's that notion ignorance is bliss, and this makes the argument why that is not, in fact, the case, and how you should pursue. And it's not prescriptive, but it provides guidelines and questions for you to examine life. So I think it's very fascinating. It's a little bit dense. I'm trying to like really work through it, but I do like the ideas. I'm just not loving the writing, unfortunately, as much as I would like. But I do like the ideas. That's why I'm sticking with it. And then eventually, I'm looking forward to. I was gonna maybe pick this one as like a book that we could read, but since we have so many books on the docket, I figured I'll just read this by myself. It's the Tega Syndrome. It's basically a whodunit mystery, and it's very short. It's like barely 100 pages, and even though it's a novel, it kind of reads like a fast-paced poem. Uh, and it's Latin American, so it calls it the contemporary Latin American detective novel. So I like those, and figured why not. So
Yeah. Is it laced with magical realism?
I
Probably
don't know
is.
yet. I haven't
Uh,
gotten there, but
oh, right,
who
you haven't
knows?
started it. Yeah, it probably will be.
But go ahead and introduce us to November's book.
November's book. We will be reading Exile in the Kingdom by Albert Camus. Yes. See, the cover's really cool. I was intrigued by the cover. It's actually very very thought provoking book. 6 different stories with the same theme and told in different ways, and I think it's a big reflection of life and what's going on and how we treat people and how we treat ourselves.
Yes. I'm about to lose half our audience with this, but unlike Donald Trump, it won the Nobel Peace Prize.
It did. It did.
So, food for thought. Food for thought. Sorry to half the audience if you didn't know our politics. Okay, so that's November. That's November. So then in December, Violet Thistlewaite is not a villain anymore by Emily Krempholtz. So I am biased towards this book because a dear friend of mine, Emily Krempholtz, wrote it. I have not read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It comes out November 18th, I believe. So you can pre-order your copy now. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about. And more than likely, we'll also do an author interview with Emily. And who knows, fingers crossed, I think Emily's going to be coming to LA to promote the book. So maybe we can even do something in person as well.
Nice.
That would be fun.
And like always, I don't have choices for my upcoming months because, quite honestly, there's so many books out in the world, and I'm just, like such a reader. I was like, maybe I'll read this today. So like me trying to plan 3 months ahead, I don't know where my mental space is going to be and what kind of book I want to read for that month. So that's me explaining why I usually don't choose my books until like really like right before we do, because there are too many books out there. You can't you like no. The future's too far away for me to like already plan a specific book at a time.
Yes, well, so Marisa gets January 2026, and then because of the way it works out, so we're not always getting the same months, she'll also get February of 2026. Then it kicks over to me in March of 2026. Look at that. I mean, 5 months in advance. The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. And then, would you know it, we have a May book as well, How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. So those should be fun. Looking forward to those many months down the line.
See, and that's why you and I balance each other out so well, because you're 5 months ahead and I'm like barely 5 days ahead. So there we go.
All good. Well, one last thing before we wrap out. I do want to say it is very cool to know that, like, I could create a mini library of my peers and mentors and friends' books. So, for example, like Elise Lunan has written 3 books technically. I mean, she's ghost written many more books, but as far as her name being associated, she's written 3 books. Cleo Wade, who's writes poetry, she's written many books. But 2 I want to highlight. Rooted in Fire by Chef Piet is coming out in November. It's a cookbook, an indigenous / Mexican cookbook. So I'm really looking forward to that. I know she's put a lot of work into it, so I want to highlight that. And as the aforementioned Violet Thistlewaite is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Krempholtz. It's just great. Obviously, we're doing this because we love reading, but because I'm lucky in my own life to like know these authors, I want to give them a special shout out. And if you could please support them. My birthday's coming up, so as a birthday gift to me, if you support these authors, it will truly mean a lot to me. So I just want to kind of put that out there. Yeah. So it's Rooted in Fire, and Violet Thistlewaite is Not a Villain Anymore. Those are the 2.
I love how we, what they say is like you are who you surround yourself with. So like and I believe you and I surround ourselves with a lot of intelligent, creative people, and that's why we keep doing the stuff that we do, because we generally thoroughly enjoy it. We enjoy books, we enjoy stories, we enjoy reading other people's lives, and also supporting other people's lives. From artist to artist, we support each other.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. And you know what? I've not met a bad author yet in terms of their spirit, right? And I know, Marisa, you've gone out into the wild, even though you're an introvert, and you've met a lot of these artists, and you always had good things to report back. So support authors. Read, that's
Absolutely.
it. At Serafini TV is where you can follow Marisa and her adventures of book loving and all such things. I'm at Phil Svitek. Thank you truly for joining us. comment down below with any thoughts that you might have about Brida. If you want to talk about the Pilgrimage and the Alchemist, happy to do that as well. Comment with what you're reading. Like, listen, just we want to hear from you. That's all. We love interacting with you guys. So, but until next time, keep reading.